the different steps and different stops we have in Tunisia, how this history gets from one era to the other one. Here in front of you, you have all these cells. These are all over the Roman era and the Carthaginian era. And we found them in the Tophet near Carthage. It's really very famous for all these tombs and cemeteries. And you found that these are really well decorated. And you have generally the god on the middle of this tell. And these are dedicated to the god Amun, which was the god for Carthaginian people. I'm sorry, you have to be near. Come here.
They call him Amun, like the Egyptian?
Amun.
Oh, okay.
Amun. And Amun, it's a different thing that's for Egyptians. That Amun used to be the god for people in Carthage. And then you have all the decorations all over about what Tunisia had is grapes there. And Tunisia was really very famous for grape wines, even during the Carthage era, and also for all the wheat. And you have animals, some sacrifices of animals for this god. Really very old. Some of them are about 2,500 years old. Well, originally, Garda Museum used to be a palace of one of the kings of Tunisia. It was really very fond of history. Please come nearer because you have many people getting in and out of the museum. It's really very, people can get, and then you cannot hear anything what I'm saying. So Garda Museum used to be a palace of the king of Tunisia. It was really very fond. The king was really very fond of history, and he wanted the population to know more about the history of Tunisia. So he built first this palace for himself, and then he dedicated the palace to the population and made it the most beautiful museum in North Africa. And now it is, in this museum you have the best and the widest collection of mosaics in the whole world. It's really very famous, and the mosaics you will see here, you cannot see them in anywhere else in the Rome during your trips anywhere else in the Roman sites all over different other countries. So as I said to some of you yesterday, the principle of building houses in Tunisia gets back from the Carthaginian era, and they used to have very undecorated outsides. Then people from outside, from the streets, never see what's inside. And then when you get inside, you have what we call a small entrance, which is well decorated with all the tiles all over and stucco on the ceiling. And you have very, very big doors and very high doors and marble everywhere. And then we have Muhammad and Allah. It's the name of the Prophet and Allah. And it's really well decorated, and what you see are tiles, and they represent some of the sceneries of the paradise. So you have the three colors which really represent the paradise for people during the 15th till the 19th century here in Tunisia are green, blue and yellow, which turns to be orange. These are the colors of paradise, and we use them in most of all the tiles we have got all over. We will see the same tiles in Darshraït, in Tuzar, we see them in Kirwan, we see them in many of the Tunisian houses. They are very typical. And you have also decoration, geometric decorations. You see also here you have minarets. Some of them represent mosques. Some of them represent even the trees of paradise all over. And here we have all the surroundings is done by a tile that we call the step of the lion, after the sea, and that represents in fact the step of the lion. When you have the lion stepping somewhere, that it will leave the small step, then it was geometrically represented later on. And the stucco you have all over, really representing very wonderful geometric scene. For those who went already to where we have been, you have the same kind of building. So you have an internal patio, and the rooms are around the patio. And generally, you have a water fountain in the middle, just to keep freshness for very hot days, summer days. So all the small water drops you have this freshness. And all the rooms that are really well decorated, and you will see that they have special decor. Get into the rooms and you will see them. And you have wonderfully decorated columns also, and these come generally from the heritage, architectural heritage we have from Roman people, because they really have wonderful Corinthian columns all over. And you have wonderful decorations also, and all the windows of the rooms that directly on the patio you have come outside. So I give you some time to get some photos all over, and we will go through the wonderful acoustics. So you know, they didn't use any microphones or anything like that. You just have to play music and hear it anywhere else. And here the decoration of the scene is made of wood. And you can find it also again in Spain, in Alhambra. You find these kind of decorations with the same decoration, the same geometrical forms that we saw already for statues and the sea and all over the private apartments. And then we have really wonderful chandeliers, crystal chandeliers. These are not from Tunisia, but then they were imported, and these were the presents to the king of Tunisia. And as he dedicated this palace to the population, he brought everything and he left everything as it is. Then what we've been adding is all these mosaics you see, and these come from very famous Roman sites all over Tunisia. So this one you have the triumph of Neptune, and Neptune is the king of the sea. So you have different other gods. You have Neptune at the middle of the mosaic over there. And then you have different kinds of gods in the sea with you have ladies, men, and different kind of fish all over. Again, you have also over there at your left-hand side a representation of a wealthy family in Tunisia that's in the area of northwest Tunisia with their house and all the activities they used to have around the house, like wine, like hunting, like farming, and even the animals they used to hold. These are a kind of their property, and you see even the fortress they have, that's their house, and they even just draw in mosaic their property to see how it is for people, and to show off people how wealthy they are. They use these kinds. And then you also have the one, the vertical mosaic, showing majorly the most species and fish you can find in the Mediterranean Sea. You have ducks, you have some fish all over, you have some even cities of Tunisia, and all over you have the decoration. As I told you, again, these are the ceremony wing of the palace of the king. So these used to be the hall where they have major ceremonies, where they used to invite people and get these ceremonies and big dinners here. So it's really wonderfully decorated with all these decorations all over. And these are much of Baroque decoration, and it gets from the influences of Tunisia with the different European styles at that period, the 17th and 18th century. So you have different Baroque decorations, and they're generally painted. So if you go somewhere to Europe, generally in southern Europe, you can find palaces also decorated in the same way as these palaces. And you have, again, a lot of mosaics, and just try to see how mosaics beautiful mosaics we found in some of the sites. And you have here the site of Dugga. Tomorrow we will go to Dugga and you will sight it and you will see it on live how the site is really well preserved, and you will see the capital, the forum and so on. Right here, first you can see again the decorations of the ceilings, the wooden decoration of the ceilings. That's first for the palace, and then you have on different sides of the room are all mosaics of everyday life. Again, Neptune, that's the god of the sea, and the four seasons, the four ladies on the four corners of the mosaics are the seasons. So you have winter, summer, fall, and spring. You have the four of them. And Neptune at the middle of the mosaic. And it is dedicated to Neptune, the god of the sea, for Roman people. And then even on the pavement, you also have, again, mosaics. These are generally mosaics found on the floor of temples or the floor of ferns everywhere in Dugga. And then again you have mosaics of different kind of birds found in the area of Dugga over there. Again you have mosaics showing workers. Just it's a bit far, but then you can see the majesty of this statue. This is the head of the statue, and you have the 2 feet of the king, and it's really very, very, very big. But then unfortunately you couldn't find the rest of the statue, only found the feet and the head. But just try to imagine how big the statue could have been with these feet and the head. And this is the god of the gods of all the Romans. For Jupiter, yes. And that's why all over the Roman cities, the most important capitals, the most important temples for Romans is the Triad temple. That's Jupiter, Minerva, and Juno. These 3 are really the most important gods for Romans. And that's why they had the most beautiful temples and the biggest temples in the Roman cities. You have astrology here.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I see this.
Names in the Roman era is that they used to use numbers. For instance, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you have Julius Caesarus, that's Jules Caesar, and that's 7 in the 7th family, that's Julius. And then you have Octavius, that's 8, that's child number 8. That's how they used to use the names, and that's how they used to name their children upon to these numbers. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and things like that. You have Septimus Severus is this number 7 in the family. And then you have Severus is the family Severus, having this 7th child of the family Severus. And then they have another thing, what we call, in fact, surnames. Surnames, generally we give emperors these names just to identify them from different other people, because you have in the same family many Septimus Severus. But then you have one that's called Septimus Severus something else. It is the example of Caligula or Caracalla. Caligula in Roman Latin means the small shoe, and Caracalla in Roman Latin means the coat. So you have emperor's name is different, but then people used to know him as Caracalla or Caligula, and then we call them later on. We do not remember the name of the king, but then we keep on calling them Caligula or Caracalla. They generally are just surnames, in fact. And the family Severus is very famous here in Tunisia and in the Libyco-Roman Tunisia, because the family originally comes from Libya. It's not Roman from Rome, it's Roman from Libya, because at about the 3rd century and the 4th century, Tunisia and Libya formed one and unique country, which was called Africa Romana. And this Africa Romana was really very wealthy and very powerful against Rome. We belong to the same Roman civilization. But then you have provinces. And the province of Africa Romana was really very powerful. And that's why this family Severus was really very powerful and very rich. And they elected one of the family to be an emperor of all the Roman provinces. And they've been ruling the Roman provinces for about 500 years. And you have in Tunisia many triumphs, or what we call the victory arches, the triumph arches all over in Tunisia and the cities to give honor to this family Severus. So wherever we go, to Doga, to Sbidla, to Villarica, you have these victory triumphs called the Septimus Severus Triumph Arcs. The people in Tunisia would like to give honor to these Libico Roman family who ruled the Roman provinces for 500 years. And they were really very good, and they expanded the Roman provinces to France, northern France, and they started to go to Great Britain and started to discover different other places. And during the 500 years of the reign of this family, the Roman provinces were secure, very wealthy, and people lived in good conditions. Unlike the eras where some other emperors used to rule, like Nero, like different other emperors who were really hectic eras during the Roman period. Tunisia is here, and Italy is just here. Here you have Sicily, and then you have Corsica, Sardinia, and France, and Spain here. Next to us you have Algeria, all over this area, and this area is Morocco. And this part is Libya, and then you have Egypt over here, and you have Greece, Greek island, Turkey, and you have all the Syria, Jordan, Palestine, and you have Sinai over here, and then you have the Saudi Arabia and all the Gulf countries this way. So this is the Mediterranean Sea, and most of the countries lying on the Mediterranean Sea. That's the geography of Tunisia and where Tunisia is situated in the Mediterranean Sea. In this wing, it's really wonderful to see because it's a new wing. In fact, it's only about 10 years old, and it's a new wing they added to the Museum of Bardo ago on the coast of Mehdiya over here. And this boat comes from Athens. It's a Greek boat who sank in Mehdiya, and they brought it out from the sea, and they found lots of wonderful things in the boat because they used to have a lot of commerce between the Greeks, Romans, and Tunisia, and everything was carried by boats. But unfortunately, sometimes you're getting some storms, and some boats cannot resist the storms, and they just go down the sea. And we brought out this boat, and you have the replica of the Greek boat over there. And all the goods they found in the boat are in these all over. You see some of the beds, the anchor, the material used. You have people, the Numid people, who lived in Tunisia. They have been Romanized. With influence of Romans, they have been Romanized, and they've been building these kind of mausoleums. And you have no one inside, in fact, because Numids and Libico Romans used to burn the bodies of their dead people. So you have no one, but then just this kind of building just to honor the spirit of the king or a preacher. And just they give the mausoleum, they write the names, guide in the war cemetery, the American war cemetery, talking about the World War II in Tunisia, because some of you would have already heard about General Patton and the war of Gasoline War, and it was the war between German people and the American and French allies coming from Morocco. So Tunisia, unfortunately, has been bombarded and many of our ruins were just destroyed. We've been trying to restore these ruins, but unfortunately in this area you have rather the Byzantine Christian mosaics, which are completely different from the mosaics we saw already in the different other rooms, because here you see that you don't have as much details as in the other mosaics. They are rather very writing mosaics. You have words in Latin to celebrate God, which is unlike the other mosaics where you don't have much writing, then you have a lot of symbols, a lot of drawings. And you have different names, so you have Sanctus, Sancti, these are all the names we have in Tunisia during the Byzantine era. And all over the cross, the Christian cross all over, and then you have over there Santa Maria, Jesus Christ. All these are mosaics. In charge of this cemetery, this World War American cemetery, he will give you explanations, and we will talk about the importance of Tunisia in the Second World War and the importance of the cemetery and the people buried in this cemetery.
So my name is Kamel. I'm the Memorial Associate. I worked with the Commission since 1985. This is all the American cemetery in all of Africa, and this is from the North African campaign, which is 8 November 1942 up to 13 May 43. That's near the landings of the occupation of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. So here rests 2,841 soldiers, sailors, airmen, women, and marine who lost their life for the freedom and the liberty. We have a statue behind you that symbolizes honor and honoring those heroes as they stay forever. We have the Wall of the Missing, which is 3,724 names inscribed along the wall, starting with Army, Army Air Force, Navy, and 14 Coast Guard at the end of the wall. A lot of those missing from two different ships. The first one, the name of the ship is HMT. It's the British Current Troops. Take 2,000 soldiers on the way to Burma to rebuild an airfield. They came by the North Africa. On the 26th of November 1943, the ship was attacked with a NASA's technical guided bomb. The ship was sunk, and over 1,000 lost their life on that one sea disaster. So over 800 listed on this one, and they find the rest of the body and they bury here. Also on 28 1944, SS Paul Hamilton, it's another ship. The ship contains bombs and explosives. It's on the way to Naples. That's for their mission. That's for the war. So they came by the North Africa. The ship had an air attack and was sunk within 30 seconds. And the 580 soldiers and sailors on the board of the ship perished, and their name listed on the wall. Also, we have 18 women listed on this wall. And those 18 women, they're on the C-47 on the way to England through the North Africa, which is after the war, 30 May 45. And the plane was crashed on the coast of Algeria. So the 18 women with the rest of the crew perished, and their name listed on this wall. As you walk along the wall, you see a bronze rosette. That means those persons, they're not missing anymore. The body was found. We have 9 of them. One who was found in Turkey in 1994, and this belonged to the Polisti area, because in 1 August 1943, it's a 177 B-24 bomber took off Libya air base for bombing in Polisti, Romania, because it was refined oil controlled by the Nazis. So 42% was accomplished of that mission. But still, the Americans lost 54 B-24 and 532 men. So one of them, he was found in Turkey, because his plane was for in the Turkey area. So they find his body and they send him back home. And he's buried in his hometown. He's from Kansas. Also, we have another 8 bronze rosettes that belong to the crew named the Lady Be Good. Also, it's a B-24 bomber took off Libya Air Base for mission over Naples on 4 April 1943. But the plane never back to the base. 16 years after the plane was discovered by the British oil worker in the Libya desert. Between 59 and 1960, they recovered the entire crew of the Lady Brigade except for one, which is Staff Sergeant Moore. They're still listed on this wall without that bronze rosette. That means he's still missing because he tried to walk by himself on the desert, so he needed help. So he's still missing in action. Here we have 2,841 buried. We have 4 sets of brothers here side by side. One of them is the Osman brother. They're from the same unit. They were killed on the same day, on the 24th December 1940. You see how about something when you hear that kind of news, that you lost both sons at the same time. Like the 5 Sullivan's brothers. They were killed on the ship, SS Punic, and they're listed on the wall in Philippines, on the wall of missing. So also here we have 1 Marine, we have 1 Medal of Honors, and he's the only one that is buried here, because actually there are 3 Medal of Honors from the North Africa campaign. The 2 other was sent back home as request from the family. And Private Nikolai Sminik, so he's buried here and he's the only one. Also we have 4 women interred here. We have one of them which is in this plot. She's a Jewish, Celia Goldberg. And in 1999 we had the visit of Mrs. Clinton with her daughter Chelsea. She placed 22 roses on that particular woman because she's from the state of New York and she's a senator of New York. And the 22 roses, that's covered the 4 women here and the 18 on this one. Also we have Captain Floyd Draper. He's a gold medal from the 1936 Olympics in Berlin with Jesse Owen, with Whitecap and Wyckoff. And he's 400 relay. He received the gold medal. So he volunteered to fight here in North Africa, and he's buried here today. So if we have a few minutes, if you want to walk along the wall of the missing, we have the chapel, we have a memorial. That's where we're going to have a ceremony on Memorial Day in front of the Stone of Remembrance. And on the left, we have 3 battle maps explained by the campaign for the North Africa, about the south, the north of Tunisia, and about the overall operation from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and it's shows that how they go to Sicily through the Gabon to Tunisia. And after we finish, if you want to stop by here, you sign your name. We have an original mosaic from the 2nd century that was given by the first President Bourguiba, or the former President Bourguiba, to the first Jude Louis Jones, he's the ambassador. So sign your name and give you the information.
That's why we'll have a look over there. We'll get a look to the city of Tunis, the hill of Birsa. I'll tell you about the legend of Alisa, and I'll tell you about the foundation of Carthage.
You know the picture that they show?
This is where Carthage was.
This is Carthage.
Oh, is that
Yeah. You can have a seat, yes.
is that the place that they were child sacrifices?
No.
Not this area,
No,
right?
no. It's Tofet. It's another area. It's over there.
But we don't gonna see that area. No. Okay.
And this program is not including it because I told you it's really a fast program. I'm trying
Okay.
to give you as much as possible. Please, over here.
But
Roman period. We're just giving this you. I'm just kidding it. It's just some people are using the area for breeding the sheep. Over here, please, I'll give you an overview of the city of Carthage. See, we've been to Bordeaux and Tunis. Tunis is in front of us. You see over there, and you can see just behind the clouds, you have a small mountain, small hill, and that's the hill of Belvedere. It's not very far from the hotel where you were. So Tunis is over there in front of us. As you can see, Tunis is surrounded by lakes and seas all over. I'll explain this later on this afternoon when you go to the city of Tunis, how it was surrounded by lakes and water and how we've been building streets and a whole city on these lakes. We've been covering all of these. Now, this tribe that goes down over there, and these we have the 2 very big chimneys over there. You can see these are the southern suburbs of Tunis, and we are in the northern suburbs of Tunis. And on the hill over here is the hill of Birsa. About 2,500 years ago, this city used to rule the Mediterranean Sea for more than 100 years. And it used to be one of the most powerful cities of the Mediterranean, and at that time the world. So, the city of Carthage, as far as the legend is concerned, was founded by King and Queen Elisa, Dido for Greek people. This queen came from Tyre in Syria with her army and with her friends because her brother killed her husband and wanted to rule the city by himself. So she felt offended and she took her friends and army and went to the coasts with her boat. She came to this hill of Birsa. This hill of Birsa used to be people here, Berbers used to live in this hill of Birsa, used to live on whole Tunisia, on all the coasts of North Africa. And when she came, she asked for a piece of land to live with her family and her friends. But people were so proud of their land, they didn't want to give her more than a bullskin land, as big as that. Just take a bullskin and you will get only as big as that as land. But she was really very smart and she's been cutting the bullskin into small stripes, and she put the stripes one edge to the other, and she's been surrounding all the hill of Birsa. And the king, the Numidian king, found that the lady was smart and he accepted to give her the whole hill of Birsa for her, her family and her army. And the hill of Birsa goes from this place to the sea over there and to the other side from the other part. So that's why this hill is called Birsa upon the Greek name Birsa, that means the bull's skin. And that's how the city, the legend of the city and the foundation of the city of Carthage. So Carthage in the Phoenician words means Qart Hadasht, that's the new city. Something like New York you have in the States. We have our New York in Tunisia, but that's 2,500 years ago. Yes. So the true story now, after the legend, the city of Carthage was founded in 814 BC, and it was founded because, in fact, at that time, 9th century and before, all the cities of Lebanon and Syria were overpopulated. So what they did, and these people were really very good sailormen, they put the young people into ships and they asked them to go and populate and create different harbors on the different coasts, mainly of North Africa. So when they came, they found this wonderful Gulf of Carthage. It's really wonderful because you have places where they can build a good harbor, and it was good to defend, and they don't have the sea is not so deep, and it was really very safe and secure for them. So they founded this city of Carthage, Qart Hadasht, the new city, and it became one of the most powerful cities of the Mediterranean. But before, these Phoenicians Carthage is not the first city they founded in Tunisia. They founded before it, 500 years before, they founded another city called Utica, which is about 50 kilometers from Tunis. And the city prospered even under the reign of Carthage. But Carthage took over all Tunisia and was one of the most powerful cities, ruling the whole country and even ruling both countries, Tunisia and Libya, together. Later on, Carthage was a threat for Rome because on the other coasts of the Mediterranean, after defeating Etruria, Rome gained power on the whole Italy and became a very powerful empire. And they have been, they had a war between Carthage and Rome. We have the three famous Punic Wars, during which Carthage lost Sicily because it used to rule Sicily. That's the first Punic War. And then during the second war, they lost Spain because they used to rule Spain too. And you have the city of Barcelona in Spain, which was named upon one of the Carthaginian families of Tunisia, Barsha. Hannibal belonged to the family Barsha, and they used to have a military camp next to Barcelona, and that's how Barcelona was named Barcelona, upon this Carthaginian family. And then all over the world now you have 22 countries in the world having a city called Carthage or Cartagena. If you go to Mexico, to Spain, to some other Latin American countries, you still have the name of Carthage everywhere. All these cities were named upon this Carthage, which is really very, very old. And then back to the Punic War, the second Second Punic War, the Second World War, because at that time the world was just concentrated on this area of the Mediterranean Sea. They lost Spain, and then Rome for the third Punic War, just one senator in Rome just stayed Dalinda Carthago, and they did what we call nowadays the strategic war, what George Bush did in Iraq, that I go to attack the enemy I suspect to be once a threat for me. That's what they did. They came to Carthage and then they destroyed all the city of Carthage. So he sent one of the army generals, the navy generals, called Scipio Africanus. He came to Tunisia, who is really very, very famous because he took over all the military tactics of Hannibal, and that's how he came and defeated the population of Carthage. And they've been spreading salt on the soil of Carthage, and they have been demolishing everybody, demolishing all the buildings, turning the population into slavery, killing the men, and again, how they did to get to Carthage. You see over there you have one small island where you have a small tree getting from that island, and you have like a semicircle lake. These were the Punic Forts, and during the Carthaginian era in Tunisia, these Punic Forts were really very famous because we will see one replica of these Punic Forts. Sorry, you have the commercial port inside, and then just in the surroundings you have like some garages for all the big navies and all the big ships, and then behind you have the military ports. And when the enemies come to Carthage, they never expected to find another port inside that small port, and you have fortresses all over and surrounding Carthage to protect the city of Carthage. So they came, and it took them 7 days to get from the Punic Forts of Carthage till here, the hill of Birsa. 7 days. It's not that far, but it took them 7 days with a big army of Rome to defeat the city of Carthage. People were really very proud and very, they had a very strong personality, and they didn't want to lose their city. So they have been burning themselves, their houses, in order to make everything disappear. They didn't want the enemies to take out their resources or their wealth, so they've been burning everything, and they've been killing themselves in order not to be turned into slavery. So when the Romans came here to Carthage, Carthage was really demolition. It was totally destroyed in 146 BC. Carthage is really totally destroyed, and no one had ever heard of Carthage anymore. They destroyed the library and destroyed everything. And that's why, unfortunately, in Tunisia we don't have much of scientific proofs of our Punic history. The only things we're having is just small rocks somewhere scattered. The only history we're having comes out from Greek people or Romans. But the Greek and Romans were just won the war. So what they're gonna say is that these people, these Carthaginian people, are barbars. They used to kill their sons, they used to kill their daughters, they used to do very bad things. These things are not true. These are only propaganda, let's say, spread by the winners. It's exactly the human beings and things we're having nowadays, 3,000 years later. And then Carthage started to reborn again, little by little, and to go much rapid in the history during the reign of Julius Caesar. Is one of the most famous emperors of most of the famous Caesars and not emperors in the Roman period. He declared Carthage as the Roman provincia of Carthage, and that's how Carthage went back again to be a very important city in the Roman period, and it's been ruling Tunisia and Libya for more than 1,000 years. Later on, Tunisia and Carthage during the Byzantine era and during the Christianizing of Tunisia, with the Byzantines coming from Istanbul, Tunisia and Carthage was one of the most important places for the Christians, and many in the Vatican come from Tunis, and that's why behind you you have one of the most famous churches. That's Saint Louis. Yes. Saint Louis came to Tunisia with the Crusades to go to Jerusalem. He's a French king. He came to Tunisia to go later to Jerusalem and to defend Jerusalem from Muslims. Unfortunately, his trip to Jerusalem stopped here in Tunis because he died, and they first built a small mausoleum as he was a saint man, and then they built this wonderful and very big church built exactly in the late 18th century. So that's the importance of Carthage. A very rapid overview of this Carthage. Let's get into the museum. The museum is over there. We'll do it. Fortunately, we cannot destroy this because it is Roman. And underneath, you still have the Punic Carthage.
I see.
So we're only keeping this. We're showing only these Punic. Unfortunately, these are the only remainings we haven't.
Is that the harbor that they show in ancient time was so pretty? Is that the harbor that they showed on the picture, like the ancient time of the Tunisia? It was.
Yes.
That's the exact location of that harbor.
That's the exact location of the harbor. It's the Mediterranean Sea. Yes. And you have her dress is getting. You have the movement. You have the shadows under her feet. So these are really very detailed. They go into very, very small details of these mosaics. That's the thing they used to do at that time. And if you just don't get near to the mosaic, if you see the mosaic 2 or 3 meters away from it, you don't distinguish the small parts, the small elements. You feel it as if it is a drawing. It is really well done. You only get these small pieces of mosaics when you go near to the mosaic and to see it. On the other side, you have a lady, a wealthy lady, doing her makeup, and you have her mirror and her housemaids helping her to do her makeup and she's got jewelry, wonderful clothes, you have shoes, and it is one of the sceneries of everyday life for the wealthy lady. We are here on this hill of Carthage, on this hill of Tirsa. The harbors are here. Now, the only existing are these harbors, the military harbor. And they used to have a commercial harbor, which was just built in the sea, directly in the sea. And now, only existing is this island, small island in the semicircle. And Romans, when they came to invade Carthage, it took them 7 days to get from this part to the hill of Tirsa. And when they came, they found a commercial harbor, and they never expected to find another harbor, another military harbor. And that's the war, how they defended, how Carthaginian people defended their city from the Roman invaders. It's really open like garage for ships.
But looks like the Romans could sink one ship and prevent at the entrance and prevent the Carthaginian navy from coming out and attacking.
That's right. That's what they did for the Third War, because they didn't expect it. They didn't expect having this military port. So they had some spies getting into the city of Carthage, and they knew about this military port. And that's how they achieved to defeat the Carthaginians, because they just stopped the getting out of these Carthaginian navy from here, and they stopped because you have all the borders of Carthage all over. And what Carthage did, because the Roman did not expect it, is that during the Second Punic War, when they stopped the Carthaginian ships to get out from the harbors, they just used these small harbors over here that Romans did not expect also. They also have things hidden. And then as Tunis is really surrounded by lakes and water everywhere, they just took something and had reinforcements coming from inside the country, from somewhere else inside the city of Carthage. And that's how they've been supplying Carthage with food, because Romans have been surrounding the harbors. So the food did not come to Carthage anymore from the sea, but from the land. Coming and bringing the food to Carthage from the land. And later, for the Third Punic War, Romans surrounded Carthage from outside, and they surrounded Carthage from this side. They only kept one entrance to Carthage, and that led Carthage to get a bit suffocated. And they felt, people in Carthage felt that they will be losing their city, and that's why they've been burning their houses, burning all their resources and everything, and they've been burning themselves, and they lost their city within 7 days. Why? And they found this tomb. It's a Punic tomb. It's from the Punic period of Tunisia. So you have the statues on the tomb, and all over it's generally decorated, really well decorated. Another art, apart from the Punic and later on in the Roman period in Tunisia, is the other navy statues, and really very true statues. I mean, you see all the movements, all the things all over. Another anecdote, and still we have no scientific proof about it. Carthage, as I told you, was really a very powerful city for a long time, and then people in Carthage were really sailormen, and they went to discover a lot of places. They were the first to discover the western coasts of Africa, Senegal, Mauritania, Ghana, and so on. And we have one of the famous Carthaginian general, Hannon, who went there and discovered all these western coasts of Africa. So they brought their ivory, they brought wild animals like like elephants, and we used to have lions in Tunisia, so they brought very wild animals like giraffes, elephants, and in a house in El Jem. Unfortunately, we will not see it. We will not see the house in El Jem, but we will see the amphitheater in El Jem. In the house in El Jem, we have a wonderful mosaic having a reference to the 6 provinces of Rome. And Africa, which is Provincia Africa, representing Africa, Tunisia, is represented by a lady with a mask of an elephant with ivory of the elephants over her head. That's a representation of Africa and Tunisia. It's really very representative, very restrictive. And then we have another suggestion. In fact, you see the lady cloth, the lady dress she's wearing. On the left part, generally cotton, and cotton was really very common. Cotton was really very common at that period. Then on the left side, you see that the cloth gets a bit transparent. You can even see her legs and her knees. It's really a bit transparent. In fact, the only transparent cloth in the world is silk. And silk was only found in China. No one knew about silk before. So we are suggesting, but we have no scientific proofs till now, is that Punic or Carthaginian people went to discover China even before Marco Polo went there. And we have another suggestion about the America, is that one of the coins, one famous coin in Tunisia, where you have a horse, and underneath the horse you have a map. This map represents, in fact, the limits and the borders of the Mediterranean Sea. At the extreme west of that map, you have another dot. And that small dot represents, in fact, because we know it, represents America. And we suggest, we still have no scientific proofs, that Carthaginians went to America even before Christopher Columbus went there. And there is another proof that we found the same coins in Mexico and in Colombia and in Cuba. And Spanish people didn't take these coins with them when they went to discover the other continent. But these are only suggestions. We have no scientific proofs for that till now. First talking about the history of Carthage and so on. So this is a replica of the forum in the hill of Birsa. The hill of Birsa used to be like this, built in this way, columns all over. And we were sitting just over there, standing over there. And you have this, everything was really set the way it is, like in this replica. Unfortunately, things were destroyed after all different wars we had in Tunisia. And then one principle of building cities for the Romans is they have a way they call the forum. It's the central part of the city, and from that central part of the city you have all the streets coming from north-south and the other one is west-east. And then you have all the streets perpendicular and parallel. Exactly what you see in Manhattan. When you go to Manhattan, all the streets are perpendicular and parallel. It is exactly the same thing when you see all the cities in the Roman cities. And in the forum, in the central place of the city, you have the capital. What we call the capital is the biggest temple of the city. And this biggest temple of the city is dedicated to the three, Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva. These three are always found in these capitals. It's the most beautiful one, the most decorated one, and the biggest one in the whole city. And then you have all the public areas. I mean, you have the courts, you have the markets, and you have all the public areas. So, I mean, everyday life goes around this forum. People generally live around this forum. So you have all the commerce, all the shops, all the courts, all the general temple, the capital, and then all around you have the houses, you have the companies, you have manufacturers, and so on. And that's how life goes in all these cities. Some cities in Tunisia are different. They don't have perpendicular or parallel streets just because the city was initially a Numic city and not a Roman city. If it was done by Numic people, they don't have these symmetrical things in parallel and perpendicular. They just have a form of a forum, and then streets went down on a hill or up or in different directions. You will see that in Duca, because Duca initially was a Numic before being Romanized. Bulla Regia too was Numic before getting Romanized. Few cities in Tunisia like Svita, we will see it in 4 or 5 days. In 4 days, we will see Svita, which was not Punic before being Roman, and that's why it's perpendicular and parallel everywhere we go. Okay, I give you some time to go through the museum to see all the goods and all the fragments of things we found all over here in the site of Carthage.
How old is this place? When was it built? BC or BC?
BC.
Like
BC.
what
this
time?
This one was built about after the second or first century BC.
So 1st century BC, after Christ, right?
No, before. BC.
Oh, before. Okay,
Before
1st
BC.
century, 100 years before Christ.
Yes.
No, il va les donner. On reprend, ça, problème.
¿Estaba entre las tarjetas?
On va passer à la go.
Right now, I'm taking you to a restaurant to have lunch.
You know, your city is much nicer than Morocco, especially here. Fez was nice, but this is something different. Like a Mediterranean.
Fez, yes.
А на самом деле такие глазки, ну прям вот сейчас сдохнет.
Let me wanna rest.
You been to Morocco? No?
No, not
No.
before, no.
What do you call that? Khatam? You see those boxes? You call them khatam too?
It's a small bar.